Do you guys want to hear a fun fact that I learned? In the United States, hospitals are federally required to call their local organ procurement organization once someone has died or if they're near death, regardless of whether or not that person was an organ donor. Now, that group will then call the grieving family and encourage them to give a donation, even if that person wasn't a donor. But this is the kicker. If that person was an organ donor, the family doesn't have say and can't stop them from taking a donation. So what ends up happening in some cases, families in their moment of intense grief, they make a spur of the moment decision and decide, well, okay, you can go ahead and take a donation. And many of them live to regret it. Don't believe me? Take the case of the 3 Bennett sisters from Las Vegas, Nevada. Their mother died unexpectedly, and they got a call from the Nevada Donor Network. And they agreed to a donation with the one condition that their mother would still be viewable for a funeral, and that only a small amount of skin would be taken out from the back of her legs. Her femurs, her tibia, her fibula would be taken, and artificial bone would be replaced in there so that she would be viewable. Well, when the sisters went to the funeral home to prepare their mother for her open casket, one sister pulled back the sheet covering her mother's legs to find her mother's feet were deformed and her legs were misshapen and about a foot shorter than they had been before. So much skin had been removed from their mother's body that she was leaking the embalming fluid. And one mortician recommended that they go ahead with a closed casket funeral since the odor of the leaking fluid was offensive. The sisters regretted the choice that they had made to go ahead with donation because they were improperly informed about what donation entails, what the body will actually look like after that happens. And they felt that they had been misled. Now, this case was in headlines in Nevada and it ended up going to court, but I want to shed light to a comment that I received from a young lady right here. Her husband died unexpectedly in a car accident, and even though he wasn't a donor, when she got a call from the organ harvesters, she agreed to go ahead with donation, and every day since then, she's regretted her decision. And I didn't know if you knew this, but when you lose a loved one and are going through extreme sadness, the brain activity in your prefrontal cortex decreases, which dramatically affects your ability to make decisions. You become forgetful. It's difficult to concentrate. They even have a term for it. It's called grief brain. So that is the definition of predatory for these groups to call families that aren't even able to think straight, that just say okay, some of them, just to get you off their back, and then they have to view their loved ones in that way because they're honestly not even being told the full honest truth of what donation entails. I've been reached out to by countless people who have agreed to donation even though their loved ones weren't a donor and regretted it, have had to view people. One woman told me that she had to view her dad at the funeral home and they didn't even get their dad's body back for a month. And once they got him, he just had no eyes, just black holes where his eyes were. They didn't realize and understand that's how the body would look afterwards. The body had not been handled with care. They were even told by the mortician that she didn't like working with the organ groups because they do not take the proper care and respect for bodies. Now, I say none of this to discourage people from being donors. When organ donation is done correctly, it is a very noble thing that you can do and a very kind thing to do for people. But what I am trying to shed light to is the fact that Americans' privacy during grieving ought to be respected. It ought to be mandated. It shouldn't be the mandate that these people can get our phone numbers and violate our privacy when we're reflecting on the life and the legacy of someone that we held close to us. Our privacy should be protected, and legislation needs to change. It needs to change so that these groups cannot call families if the deceased individual was not an organ donor, because chances are, if you didn't register to be an organ donor, it's not due to lack of information, it's because you didn't want to be one for whatever reason. And actually, we don't need to give you a reason why we don't want to be an organ donor. If you or anyone else you know were pressured by one of these groups, please leave a comment. Or if you were one of the individuals who did end up giving a donation and regretted it, also leave a comment. I also want to say, if you gave a donation and regretted it and feel like you are to blame, you are not to blame. You made a decision in a moment of sadness, in a moment of grief. You wanted to do good and to bring life when that person died. You did nothing wrong. What was wrong was that you were preyed on in your vulnerability. Thank you guys for watching my video. If you agree with what I'm saying, please check out the petition in my description, where I want to shed light to the idea that organ procurement organizations ought to cover part of their donors' funerals. We're not asking for a check to be cut. We're not selling organs. We're asking for the decent thing to be done. And we're also asking that these groups stop calling Americans, that our privacy and information is not violated, is not given to these groups. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch my video, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.